latest track just in a couple of seconds ago from the National Hurricane Center on that powerful system set to threaten a deadly storm surge up and down the Gulf Coast of Florida. We're going to take you live to the center of the action on what could end up as a serious Category 3 storm. Plus, also breaking tonight, the lockdown lifting in just the last couple of minutes at UNC Chapel Hill. The search for a person of interest in a possible shooting there, and what we're hearing from campus police and students. Then some just terrifying video of a rescue chopper dropping out of the sky, with new questions tonight on how this deadly crash could have happened. We'll have the latest on where the investigation stands. And the soccer scandal that will not go away. As we learned tonight, the head of the Spanish Federation is now the target of a criminal investigation after kissing the women's team's star player. His mother now on a hunger strike. Protesters now calling for a reckoning over machismo. So what's next? We're live overseas, and we're live down south for our original tonight on this first day of school for a now transformed college at the center of Governor Ron DeSantis' controversial curriculum overhaul. We've got more on the college culture wars coming up. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting tonight with the latest track on Tropical Storm Idalia. In just the last 2 minutes, we've learned it is getting closer to hurricane strength, and it has shifted. So Tampa, the city of Tampa, is just outside the cone. You see the latest track here, again, just into us here, as this storm is expected to make landfall in Florida early Wednesday morning, late Tuesday night, as at least a Category 3 hurricane. It'll be the first big hurricane of this year's Atlantic season to hit the U.S. We're talking about a storm surge that could be dangerous, tons of wind, a state of emergency already in place for nearly 50 counties, including most of the west coast of Florida. Some people being told they must evacuate. Others are being told, get ready for it. You've got schools and colleges shutting down now in dozens of places starting tomorrow. And the big airport in the area also closing, with Tampa International saying nothing's going to fly in or out starting around midnight Tuesday. The state's governor, Ron DeSantis, jumping off the 2024 campaign trail to be on the ground as the hurricane rolls in, warning people to be ready as the storm will get even stronger as it gets closer. Watch.
It looks like it's going to continue to strengthen over the very warm waters of the Gulf, but it's the surge in the water that is really the most deadly when it comes to these hurricanes.
Marissa Parra is live for us there in Tampa. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is also standing by. And Bill, because we have just gotten the track in, I want to go to you first. This National Hurricane Center update is in within literally the last 4 minutes here. What's it telling us that we didn't know before?
Well, it's telling us that we're getting closer to the landfall, and we're still not having a direct hit on the Tampa area where the highest population center is, because that's the biggest fear, right? I mean, the biggest fear is that we have a strengthening storm up to a Category 3 or 4, and all of a sudden it's heading towards Tampa. As of now, we're still about 40 hours away from the landfall. It looks like it's more towards the Big Bend in Florida. So as you mentioned, not quite a hurricane yet, still has a little bit of wind shear, but Tuesday should be an entire 24-hour period of just a strengthening storm over very warm water. So the Hurricane Center brings up to 120. They say it still could intensify after that. So, we could possibly be bordering on a Cat 4 at landfall. It wouldn't surprise me at all. In between Tallahassee and just north of the Tampa area. This region here is very swampy. I've driven most of it. I've been out here to Cedar Key. There's not a lot out here. Very, very small towns, some fishing villages, but that's about it. They're telling all of these people, get out of there. Don't even be near this place. Go away, because it's very flat, it's very swampy, and when this comes on shore with the storm surge, they want people to survive. We're in the mode of saving lives right now and trying to tell the right people to get out and who has to evacuate. It's nice to see Tampa out of the cone, but the cone of uncertainty shows the storm could be over here or could be over here. The closer the storm is to Tampa, the more storm surge they will get. It does not have to be a direct hit for Tampa to have a horrific storm surge, and that's one of the concerns. Our computer models, yesterday they were kind of pointing at Cedar Key and Cross City. They've shifted a little bit closer towards Tallahassee, so the Hurricane Center is that black line. It hasn't really changed much. We're not really seeing many trends. We're calling it, for the most part, saying the forecast where it's heading is not changing. And here's the storm surge forecast. This area that I was telling you about, the Cedar Key location, 7 to 11 feet. That is a lot of water in areas that are very shallow. And then about 6 to 9 feet. Notice, far away from the center, even in Tampa Bay, a 4 to 7 foot storm surge. That's why they're evacuating everyone on the barrier islands and right along the coastal peninsula. We call it Zone A. They're telling people to get out of their RVs, their mobile homes, any low-level dwellings. They're being told to evacuate. And then, of course, the rainfall rainfall problems. That's always an issue with these storms. Someone could get a foot of rain. And we're not just concerned with North Florida, but all coastal areas of the Carolinas and Georgia. And as far as the max winds go, again, where the center goes, that's 118 possible there around Cedar Key. But notice around Clearwater, St. Petersburg, Tampa, more in a tropical storm range. So power outages, because of the low population center to the north here, as long as this track holds, Hallie, we do not expect to see crazy number of people without power. But as we saw with Ian, remember 48 hours before Ian was supposed to be up here, and then it went all the way down to Fort Myers. So that's why everyone... We're going to stare at this. We're going to study everything and give you all the information as soon as we get it. So I know people in Tampa area, they're on the edge of their seats.
They sure are. That brings us, Bill, thank you to Marissa Parra, who is there in the Tampa area. The big concern, as Bill has laid out, is what if this storm in the next 40 hours suddenly takes a tack further southward and aims more directly at Tampa? Even if it doesn't, there is still going to be an impact where you are, Marissa.
Absolutely, Hallie. And to kind of piggyback off of Bill there, you know, I just went out to get supplies and I just got back. And as I was going out, people were talking about it at the store. They were asking me, what do you think is going to happen? And that's the big question. They were wondering whether or not this is that time period, that really crucial time period as people are making those decisions. Are we going to weather it out at home or are we going to evacuate? Either way, we're in front of one of the places where people are making those preparations. This is one of the sandbag centers. They have them not just all over the county that we're in the Tampa Bay area, but in counties all around on this Gulf Coast side of Florida, because people are preparing for the storm surge. So we had a chance to talk to people in line here. It's kind of 50-50 in terms of whether they're using the sandbags to prep their home before they leave it or using those sandbags to prep their home while they're inside of it. Take a listen for yourself.
We've been extremely lucky here in Tampa and have been bypassed by bad ones. And I'm just afraid that our luck is going to run out. We're not going to be prepared one time.
You got to be safe than sorry. You can't just assume that it's not going to hit. Last year they said it wasn't going to hit Orlando, and it did.
And I will add, too, we are seeing a lot of hesitation. I'm already seeing a lot of hesitation from people that normally felt in a place of confidence when it comes to hurricanes. I think people have a very strong memory of what happened with Ian. People were feeling pretty confident in the Fort Myers area about Hurricane Ian. And at the last second, when it was already too late for a lot of those families to realize how devastating this was about to be, it was already too late for them to evacuate, Hallie. So I think there's a lot of people who are taking this a lot more seriously than they might have a few years ago. And then when we talk about all the preps that are being done, of course, not just sandbags, you've got people prepping their homes or if they're on the go, getting ready to pack up those waters, those to-go bags, whatever that might need, whatever they might need for those few days. I'll add this too. Gas. Gas is a big part of this. We talk about needing to prep the car whether you're trying to stay in the car or hit the road for an extended period of time. We've seen those traffic jams before, how bad those can get, especially outside of gas stations. Take a look at this map because this is something that is pretty concerning. We heard that there were gas contamination concerns with one particular company. This is Citgo. You're looking at all of those gas stations there. What they're saying is there might have been a concern if you filled up at a Citgo at those gas stations after Saturday at 10 a.m., you may not be able to use that gas. It might actually cause your car to break down. There was a concern that regular fuel was contaminated with diesel fuel. And Hallie, that is just, when we're talking about moments like this, every minute counts. And you can't have something go wrong like having your car break down as you're trying to make your way out of here. So obviously, there's a lot more to be determined when it comes to that particular problem, but certainly not making things easier for families as they're trying to make those crucial decisions in these last hours before the tropical storm, soon to potentially be hurricane, gets here. Hallie?
That's right. Those last-minute preps. Marissa Parra, thank you very much for being there live on the ground. I know we'll be talking more in the days to come. Appreciate it. To some other breaking news tonight, where in just the last few minutes, UNC Chapel Hill is giving the all-clear after an hours-long lockdown after saying there was an armed and dangerous person on campus. I want to show you. You can see what it looked like this afternoon. All those police cars, emergency responders. There was a shelter-in-place order that had been issued for the campus. And this picture of a person of interest was also released by officials. Julia Ainsley is joining us now live with the latest. And Julia, let's be transparent here. We have just laid out the facts of what we know. There are so many questions here about what happened, what triggered this lockdown, and what is the status now? What answers do we have, if any?
Yeah, Hallie, I can give you this play-by-play. At 1 o'clock, we know that there was reports of at least one shot fired, and the police put the campus on an all-out lockdown, even asking elementary school students at Chapel Hill schools to also be on lockdown across the sprawling campus and community. As the hours went by, we heard the suspect was at large. They were told to remain in place, shelter in place, and stay away from that individual that you just put on screen. That is a man who we understand to be a graduate student at UNC and who police said was known to be a person of interest in an armed and dangerous persons investigation or incident. And so they were telling people not necessarily that he was a suspect of a shooting, but that he was a person of interest. As the hours went by, we later learned a person was taken into custody. That's from our affiliate in the area, WRAL. We have not independently confirmed that, but around that same time, without saying to the public that anyone was in custody, the police at UNC did send out an all clear, telling them that that remain in place order had lifted, although all classes and events were canceled for the day. Now, as for whether or not there were any injuries or casualties yet, we don't know, Hallie. We haven't seen confirmed reports of that. We will continue to monitor that situation. But as far as neighboring and nearby hospitals, they had told us that they had not taken in any victims from a shooting on UNC's campus. But certainly a really tense moment for students who are just now returning to class. This is their second week of class at UNC. It's a big campus. It's a sprawling campus and one that includes a community. So students and community members alike today on standby after a very scary situation. And we'll continue to tell you as we learn more who might have been a victim in this case.
Julia Ainsley, thank you very much for that update. Elsewhere in Washington now, we are learning tonight the former president is set to go to trial on federal election interference charges the day before Super Tuesday in early March. The closest collision yet between Donald Trump's legal calendar and his political one, and a move that could have a huge domino effect in the race for the White House. So, March 4th. Pencil it in. And we do mean pencil, as the judge in that federal case has rejected the Trump team's push to hold off on his trial until after next year's election. You see what the judge said in court here, that Mr. Trump, like any defendant, will have to make the trial date work regardless of his schedule. Now, overlay that to the political calendar. Remember what happens March 5th. So March 4th trial, March 5th. People in more than a dozen states go out and vote for their primary pick. You have tons of delegates up for grabs. Blaine Alexander is live for us in Atlanta with another key twist in a separate case involving the former president. But I want to start with Ryan Riley outside federal court in Washington. So significant, Ryan, that in early March you're going to have potentially this trial smack dab on top of Super Tuesday. But will that date hold?
I think it's a good range for when this trial will take place. There always is going to be the chance that basically because of some of these unique issues that are being argued in this case, that there's going to be essentially a stop clock being hit at some point and say, okay, we need to put a pause on this because we're figuring out these broader issues, whether that be to the appellate level or whether that be to the Supreme Court. But we remember there a lot of these issues with this broader question about this grand jury in the first place have already been litigated in court here. They've gone up to the chief judge. Some of them have gone to the appellate level. So this is a case that has already sort of worked through the system even before we got to the indictment point. And that's a point that Judge Chutkan repeatedly brought up over the course of this hearing today is that, listen, this isn't new. This wasn't like, oh, Donald Trump woke up one day and surprised I've been indicted. Actually, she said something along those lines. This was something that he knew about, for a very long time. But really, the start date goes back to September of 2022 when this grand jury really got underway and when he was notified about some of these investigations. And remember, he's been supplying the legal defense for a lot of the other witnesses in this case overall. So I think basically March could be a good range for when this could happen, and really does. It was a real loss, I think, for the defense team here. They were saying that if they were to bring this to case in January, that would be nothing more than a show trial. But the prosecution team was pretty prepared for a lot of the defenses, and the judge seemed determined to move forward. In fact, she already consulted with that New York attorney, New York judge at some point about when this trial date would be set in March.
Right. And the Trump team had wanted like 2026 or something. And she was like, no, that's not going to happen. What is so interesting here, Ryan, I'm going to ask you to sort of wear both of the sort of legal and political hats here, because Donald Trump is wearing both of them. If this holds, right, and this trial and Super Tuesday, this really key election contest happened in the same week, there are so many hypotheticals, right? What if Donald Trump has done very well in Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada in the contests prior to Super Tuesday, and he's got a big delegate lead? What if he goes to get a bunch of delegates delegates on Super Tuesday. We have seen him in the past have his legal issues put some wind in his sails when it comes to things like fundraising, when it comes to things like solidifying Republican support behind him. Does it have an impact on other candidates, for example, who might be going, well, wait a second, you've got the front runner potentially set to be on trial on federal criminal charges? I mean, there's so many questions we don't have the answer to, but this is a split screen that is going to have an impact on the race for the White House.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, I mean, there's other candidates can be aware of, but, you know, overall, she's not going to take into consideration any of these things. In fact, she sort of compared, the judge in this case sort of compared Donald Trump to a professional sports player, saying that, you know, I wouldn't be taking into consideration what the sports schedule is like for an athlete. So he's not going to take that into consideration here. But the dates that I sort of keep in mind are that 90 days after a potential verdict in this case, because that's when you'd have sentencing set. That's typically 90 days out from a verdict. So theoretically, if you're to get a verdict in this case in, say, mid-April, that puts you smack dab in July in the middle of the RNC when you're talking about a sentencing for the president here. Now, of course, that's that's like, I mean, it's a really remarkable situation that you could have a split screen between the RNC and a sentencing potentially, or at least that be in the future. Now, there's a lot of contingencies. Obviously, this is talking about, you know, far into the future after conviction. But just in terms of that sentencing, there's a theoretical world here in which Donald Trump has a pending prison sentence over his head when he actually runs. And I think it's a long shot still for him to actually start serving that sentence, because even then you'd be able to self-report theoretically. But that really is what we're looking at here down the line, as long as some of these other issues are settled before this case ultimately goes to trial somewhere in that spring territory. And I think March is basically the starting date now.
Ryan Riley, live for us in Washington. Thank you. Let's take you live now to Atlanta, where Blaine Alexander is posted up. There has not been a trial date yet set in a different case involving the former president, but there is a new twist where you are in Fulton County, Blaine. Former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows taking the stand today. He's trying to get that Georgia election interference case moved, and your team on the ground, Blaine, is hearing they're in closing arguments now, right? Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, I just talked to Diane Morales. She is our producer who's been inside this and literally running back and forth from overflow to update me as much as she can. And she told me that as of about 45 minutes ago or so, they were getting ready for closing. So here's what we understand. We know that Mark Meadows was on the stand for the better part of 5 hours. After that, we heard from Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger himself. He testified for about an hour. During that testimony, they played 4 excerpts of that now infamous phone call that all of us know, and he was asked several questions about that. He talked for just under an hour. They then took a break and said that each side would get about 30 minutes for a closing statement. That's the process that we're in right now. So yes, if the timeline is correct, we expect it to wrap up at any moment. What's notable about all of this, Hallie, is that we started this day not expecting Mark Meadows to take the stand. In fact, we really didn't even know whether or not he'd be in Georgia today for the hearing. So the fact that he spent much of the day on the stand is certainly notable in this hearing, Hallie.
We're also just learning, as you talk about this specific Georgia case here, Blaine, that the arraignment for both Mr. Trump and his 18 co-defendants will happen a week from Wednesday, so next Wednesday. But still a ton of question marks about what that even looks like. He could show up, like he could be allowed to appear virtually, right? He could be allowed to waive his appearance. Like, what does Wednesday look like?
So we do know one thing about Wednesday. It's going to be long because one by one, all of these defendants have been stacked right after another. So, but as for how they're going to appear, we don't know. We've been told that virtually is on the table. We want to make sure that that's still the case. And then, of course, some of them could choose to waive their appearance altogether. So it could certainly be a mixed bag on next week.
Blaine Alexander, live for us there in Atlanta. Blaine, thank you for covering every minute of it. We'll check back in with you next hour to see where that Mark Meadows testimony stands. Appreciate it. 2 people are dead tonight, with 2 others in the hospital after a Florida rescue helicopter crashed. The FAA, the NTSB, saying they're going to investigate what happened in video that is just terrifying. We're only going to show it to you once because it is so disturbing. It's from today in the city of Pompano Beach. So this is the chopper from Broward Sheriff's Office. Obviously in distress here. It's got smoke coming off the tail. Then you're about to see it. It goes into a tailspin. It looks like the tail almost breaks off. It spins. It comes crashing down to earth, specifically down into an apartment building. Huge crater in the roof. One of the people killed was a fire captain and a paramedic who was on board the chopper. A woman on the ground was also killed. I want to bring in NBC's Tom Costello, who is following this one for us. And Tom, what else do we know? How did this happen?
Horrific. This was a sheriff's department, fire rescue chopper headed for an emergency traffic accident with serious life-threatening injuries. And they had just lifted off. And immediately after lifting off, they were reporting problems, a potential fire on board. We don't know where the fire was. Think about this. They're en route to a life-threatening traffic accident. They've got a fire on board, and the pilot radios to the firefighters on the scene of the accident, we need to turn around. We've got to deal with a mechanical issue. He's being credited for that selflessness to tell the firefighters on the scene of the traffic accident, keep treating the patients you have. Nonetheless, the plane, or rather the chopper, as you said, went down onto an apartment building. A resident, an elderly woman in that building, was killed in total. The fire department captain was killed. He was on board, a paramedic captain, as well as a woman on the ground, and 4 people in total injured, including the pilot. Take a listen to what the sheriff of Broward County said just a short time ago.
They went airborne at about 8:42, and roughly around 8:43, they start recognizing that they were having mechanical issues on board. They put out a distress signal notifying the local fire rescue team that they would not be able to land. Therefore, they were not going to have an opportunity to help these people who were injured. They were fighting for their own life.
Let me just tell you about the victim. He is 19-year veteran, I should say, 50 years old, paramedic captain. There you go, right there. Terrison Jackson, who loved his job, say all of his colleagues, and he lived for his job. He lived for helping others. He's being heralded as a hero, and the departments are in mourning, as you can imagine, the sheriff's department and the fire department there in Broward County.
Of course. Tom Costello, thank you very much for that update. Appreciate
You
it.
bet.
To Maui now, where the big electric company there is saying tonight it can't be blamed for those deadly wildfires in Lahaina because its power lines were already turned off before that second fire started. This is part of their response to a lawsuit from the county, one of several suits that have been fired since those devastating firestorms, essentially, that left at least 115 people dead. Now, Hawaiian Electric acknowledges that its lines caused a fire in the morning, but that was put out without anybody getting hurt, without any damage, and that their electric lines had been powered down before the second fire in the afternoon. It was that second fire that caused all the destruction. The power company says it has the records to prove this. I want to get to Steve Patterson now, live for us in Maui. Talk us through what this means, because it does seem to be a potentially significant development if Hawaiian Electric can prove this.
It is potentially significant, but we're in a full-blown blame game at this point. Residents blame the county for not sounding the sirens. The county blames the electric company for not de-energizing the lines. The electric company says, wait a minute, we did de-energize the lines. It was you guys who left a fire scene. And so it's sort of a back and forth. I want to take you through the timeline, though. I think we can throw it up on screen. Here's what the electric company, Hawaiian Electric, 95% of all power in the state, here's what they say happened. They say on August 8, 2023, the morning of the fire was caused by the power lines. They sort of admit that. Yeah, okay, maybe our lines did fall, but that Maui County Fire Department declared it 100% contained and it was extinguished. So then the electric company says crews kept the power lines, the power off in the area. Then 3 p.m. is when that big fire strikes. A second fire in the area broke out. But by then, the power company says, look, we de-energized the lines, unlike what you guys said about us in the lawsuit that alleges we did not. As far as what the reaction is on the ground here, Hallie, look, I think it's important that we talk about this. Somebody is likely to blame here, and they will maybe have to pay with their war chest, their stock price, their reputation is on the line as well. But as far as what people think, I mean, look, there's still a list of 388 names of people missing. People here are more concerned about finding their aunt or their kids. Teachers are more concerned about when they call roll next week, how many kids are going to raise their hands and say, we're here. People who have survived the fire are more concerned about, where am I going to live next week? How long is this government funding going to keep me going? So I think it's still too early to sort of get that reaction, but it's interesting to see the back and forth and how this plays out. And last thing I should say is that there's no official cause. The investigation into this is not over, so it's going to be some time before we actually know, based on scientific evidence, how this fire actually started. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, live for us there on the island of Maui. Steve, thank you very much. Coming up, some new details on a security officer now being called a hero for chasing a potential shooter at a historically black college in Florida. Plus, several Marines still in the hospital after that deadly Osprey crash in Australia. We'll tell you what we know about the survivors and our 5 things. And a college student killed after trying to go into the wrong house. How South Carolina's Stand Your Ground law could play a part in that investigation. Next. New details late tonight about a security officer now being called a hero at a historically black college in Jacksonville after he chased a potential shooter off campus. That attacker then went on to kill 3 people at a nearby Dollar General store. That officer thanking the students at Edwards Waters University for helping him do his job. Listen.
It was actually the students. We preach, you see something, say something, and they did just that. I did see what appeared to be a tactical vest, a mask, along with a hat covering his head at that time.
It comes as President Biden, too, is talking about this racist attack, saying as a country, we cannot let hate win. Listen.
Can't let hate prevail, and it's on the rise. It's not diminishing. And we have to speak out that there's a whole group of extreme people trying to erase history.
You can see some of the chilling moments here when police say the shooter, armed with an AR-15 style rifle, a gun, a tactical vest, walked into that Dollar General store, an attack that cut short the lives of 3 people. Anot LaGuerre Jr., who had recently graduated from high school and was working as a cashier at that store. His dad said he hasn't even lived his life yet. Gerald Deshaun Gallion, whose brother described him as a good person who didn't deserve this. And Angela Carr, she'd been Ubering somebody to the store when this happened. Her daughter says her mom was a dedicated and great woman who wasn't even supposed to be there. Gabe Gutierrez is live for us in Jacksonville tonight. Gabe, we saw a video from TikTok showing the shooter, what appeared to be the shooter on campus, not long before the attack at the Dollar General. We know the FBI is looking into this as a hate crime. Where do things stand?
Hi there, Hallie. Well, actually, as we speak, and we hope to turn around this video for you in the next hour because it's happening right now, but the sheriff is releasing some new surveillance video of officers responding to the scene and of the gunman speeding away. Now, just a short time ago, I actually spoke with that security officer. It's incredible to speak with him, Hallie. He talks about how, he doesn't think that he himself is the hero, even though that's exactly what the university president is calling him. He says that the heroes are the actual students who flagged him down, and he reverts back to his training. He patrols that campus to keep these students safe. And when they saw something, they said something, alerted him, and he was able to confront that gunman. Now, I asked the university president, did he think, if not for the actions of this security officer, would that gunman have targeted this university? And he said, without a doubt, absolutely he thinks so, although the sheriff has been a little bit more cautious, saying he's not sure if that university was the intended target. Regardless, this security officer is being hailed as a hero. In terms of the investigation, Hallie, yes, you mentioned this is being investigated as a hate crime. And now we're also learning more about the gunman's background. It turns out he had no criminal history, according to police. But several years ago, back when he was 15 years old, he was held for an involuntary mental health evaluation. That's Florida's Baker Act here in this state. Still, though, that would not have turned up in a background check. He legally purchased these firearms, according to police, Hallie.
Hundreds of people now are grieving this loss of life and grieving the scar that is now on their community because of this attacker, because of the shooter here. There's been a vigil already. Give us a sense of what it's like where you are.
Hallie, there's another vigil that's also being planned for later on tonight. This community is shocked. You mentioned that, hundreds of people gathered for this prayer vigil yesterday. And this is something that Vice President Kamala Harris said that the country was experiencing an epidemic of hate. We were called the grocery store shooting back in Buffalo last year. And the rise in hate crimes back, from 2020 to 21, the last years we have dates for. Here in this community, it is devastated. I also just spoke with the daughter of one of the victims here. Her name is Ashley Carr. That daughter told me how her mom was an Uber driver. You mentioned her in the introduction. Take a listen to what some of she told me.
It's a traumatic, unreal, incredible experience that you never are ever prepared for that amount of emotion, of that, you know, it's unfathomable.
The mother leaves behind 3 children, and Hallie, get this, 16 grandchildren.
Gabe Gutierrez, it's just heartbreaking. Thank you so much. We're going to be looking for an update, I know, from you and your team as we get a look at that surveillance video that, as you say, being released as we speak. Thanks, Gabe. Let's take it down to South Carolina, where students at the University of South Carolina are back in class today after one of their fellow students was shot and killed trying to get into the wrong house. Police say somebody shot 20-year-old Nicholas D'Onofrio on the porch of the home he was trying to get into that wasn't his. He apparently lived on that same street. It's a couple miles from campus. He'd just moved in a few days ago. We have seen situations similar to this before, people being shot at, in some instances killed for what seemed to be a simple mistake. You'll remember from earlier this year, a white man in his 80s shooting 16-year-old Ralph Yarl when Yarl rang the wrong doorbell while trying to pick up his little brother. Yarl says he still has some of those, of course, lingering impacts from getting shot in the head. There's 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis, who died when somebody shot at the car she and his friends were in when they accidentally pulled into the wrong driveway. Kristen Dahlgren is covering what happened in South Carolina and joining us now. Police say investigators are still looking into the circumstances here. Talk about what we know.
Right. So we still don't know anything about the person who was the shooter, who presumably lived in that house and was there at the time. What we do know and are learning more is about this 20-year-old Nick D'Onofrio. He recently moved into a house on that same street as the shooting. And take a look at this police statement. Here's what they have released so far. They say at 2 a.m., police got a call. At first, it came in as a burglary call, but it was quickly upgraded then to a shooting. And by the time Columbia police got there, D'Onofrio was dead on the porch with a gunshot wound to his upper body. We also did, through our affiliate WIS, get a statement from D'Onofrio's family, just really heartbreaking. His parents saying, "We were very lucky to be his parents, and we love him very much. He was the son that every parent would wish for," Hallie.
How does South Carolina's stand your ground law impact sort of the potential investigation here or steps moving forward?
Right. So that's the question now. And police say they continue to work with the solicitor's office on this investigation, on determining if there was any fault and any charges that might be coming. It's also known as the castle doctrine. So in South Carolina, you don't have to retreat. And keep in mind, the castle, the home, could also be your business or your car, something, you know, that you own. You can use deadly force and you don't have to retreat if you feel like you're acting in self-defense, and that is going to be key here, Hallie.
Kristen Dahlgren, thank you very much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, 3 Marines were killed, 20 others hurt after an Osprey crashed during a training exercise in Australia. Officials say 8 of those Marines were still in the hospital, 12 are out. No more details other than that. Investigators are still looking into this. Number 2, a rep for Elton John says he is now back home and doing well after being hospitalized when he fell at his home in France. His rep says he went into the hospital just as a precautionary measure. Elton John's had some health issues over the years. Remember back in 2021, he needed hip surgery after a fall. He had to postpone some tour dates back then. Number 3, a technical issue affecting Britain's flight planning system today left thousands of people with delays. Fortunately, things are now fixed up, but London's Heathrow Airport say there were still going to be significant disruptions, for most of the evening. Number 4, President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden welcoming D.C. students back to school on their first day. They dropped into a middle school math class, one of a whole bunch of back-to-school events. Later in the week, the First Lady, who, of course, teaches community college, will travel to the Midwest to talk about mental health for students. Number 5, the first round of the U.S. Open kicking off today with a big new change. Officials can actually use video replay to figure out whether a ball bounced twice. This could be a game changer, literally, like truly potentially change games. The U.S. Open is the first Grand Slam tournament to have this. We'll see if it makes a difference coming up. When we come back, more calls for Spain's soccer chief to resign, and they're coming from people at the top. The new investigation just opened today into whether that super controversial World Cup kiss was also a crime. Plus, a big mystery, looking like a big bust at West Point today. What happened when they opened a more than 200-year-old time capsule? In just the last few minutes, we found out that members of Spain's soccer federation want the resignation of their own president after Luis Rubiales was seen kissing the women's team's star player just moments after they won the World Cup. These team members, these federation members, calling that unacceptable examples of behavior that have severely damaged the image of Spanish football. So let me put it into context if you're not like a super soccer fan. This is like the equivalent of every NFL team asking the NFL commissioner to resign. That's what this would be like, right? It's happening as prosecutors in Spain are launching a new investigation tonight into whether Rubiales broke the law when he kissed Jennifer Hermoso, with people in Spain furious, responding, hitting the streets to support Hermoso, calling for both Rubiales' resignation and an end to so-called Spanish machismo and sexism. Rubiales is not doing any of what these people want him to do, right? He is not going to resign. He's defiant in the face of it, but FIFA has suspended him for 90 days already. As for Hermoso, she's been pretty clear about her feelings about this on X, formerly known as Twitter, calling it a sexist, out-of-place act without any consent on my part. And because of that, we're not going to show you the video of what happened, of that kiss. Spanish authorities say Hermoso has 15 days to report herself as a possible victim in the investigation. But again, Rubiales and his family are not going down without a fight. His mother is holding up inside this Spanish church. She's gone on a hunger strike. She says her son has been treated unfairly. NBC's Molly Hunter is following this story for us. And Molly, we started covering this story right when it happened, right? I think it was like the night that this occurred, the morning after. It has spun off in a whole lot of different directions and is really creating this moment of reckoning, not just in Spain, but around the world.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. This is a moment of reckoning, by the way, that the Spanish players are saying, we told you this was coming. This is structural. This has been happening, which I think is really interesting, Hallie, which I hope we'll talk about in these next couple of minutes, is that do women have to be winning for them to be listened to? But a little bit more on the investigation I will give you. As you just mentioned, a massive federal investigation has been launched today. They are looking specifically what they believe are the facts may constitute an offense of sexual harassment. It's also being called sexual aggression. That is the crime they are talking about. As you mentioned, Jennifer Hermoso, the national player, now has 15 days to formalize that complaint. She has been very, very clear. But the onus is now on her legal team to really put that forward. It's very clear, though, how FIFA feels. They responded, not as quickly as some wanted, Hallie, suspending him for 90 days. Also, very interestingly, and this is very rare, banning him from contacting Jennifer Hermoso or anyone in her environment or anyone that she is close to, her family or her friends, which is quite rare. This Deputy Prime Minister, Hallie, I do just want to play a little bit of sound from her and then talk to you on the back end, because she speaks to the magnitude of this moment.
No matter how hard they try to use force against the women of this country, I think they will not succeed. There has to be a profound renewal of the sporting structure in our country. In other words, it is clear that what we are experiencing is not normal.
And yet, it's not normal. It hasn't been normal. They've been saying this for the last year or so. And finally, though, the World Cup champs on a world stage. It is the moment, the crowning moment they should be celebrating. And this is on video, Hallie. I really respect the show for not showing that video. And that's what we're talking about a week later. We're not talking about that amazing first half goal that won them the World Cup. We are still talking about this. This is what's making national headlines. Now, tonight, that FA, the Spanish Federation, has been meeting all day. The regional presidents, as you led your show with just now, as you led your intro, are suggesting that he resign. Right now, it only looks like that's going one direction.
Pull on that thread more, Molly, right? Because you traveled with a bunch of these teams throughout the tournament. You know how much this was such a dream come true for these Spanish women. The focus has shifted, and there has been this broader cultural moment that comes from this.
Yeah, exactly. This was a first-time winner. We knew, Hallie, and we talked about this during the tournament, that we would either get the England Lionesses or the Spanish team. Neither have ever won. This is a huge moment for this team, and you watch that final. They are out there. They are excited. They are celebrating. They are so happy, and then this happens, and this handicaps it. This overshadows it. This is what we are still talking about, and you've seen over the weekend from NWSL players, from all of these U.S. women pro players, they've been wearing these wristbands. They've been holding up these signs saying, we are with you. But I think this is the broader conversation. And we saw it with the U.S. women and their fight for equal pay. We are seeing these athletes lead these social and progressive changes, but only when they're good, Hallie, but only when they're on top.
Molly Hunter, glad you're here being able to cover this story for us. Again, taking so many new twists and turns. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, the end of an era for a huge downtown San Francisco store, why some are seeing bright spots in this otherwise bad retail news for the city. Plus, where hunters caught a record-breaking gator that one commenter called nightmare material. If you'd like some fodder for yours tonight, stick around. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, officials in Phoenix say they've run out of more than 1,500 kits of a key drug to help stop overdoses. This is just days after they started offering them at a whole bunch of libraries there. This is part of a big distribution program to try to prevent people from dying from opioid ODs. 1,500 people, more than 1,000 people died in that city just last year. The city's working to restock. Out of our Southern Bureau, a group of hunters in Mississippi have broken a record for the longest alligator ever caught in the state. 14 feet long, weighs 800 plus pounds. Took them 7 hours. They say they almost ruined their equipment. Public gator hunting has been legal in that state for nearly 20 years. Out of our Northeast Bureau, West Point, opening up a time capsule today from more than 200 years ago. So much anticipation, so much mystery. Turns out nothing was inside. They went and had this big reveal, big ceremony. They just found some dirt and a little marking. They say this capsule was found inside the base of a monument and was thought to be left by cadets. So still a mystery, just not the one you expected. To San Francisco now, where that so-called doom loop walking tour that promised to show evidence of the city's decline was canceled over the weekend after the organizer cited too much media attention. Of course, the attention was part of the product of that tour. And even though that's not happening, San Francisco's struggles are still on display after the flagship Nordstrom store in the city's downtown closed up for good. Here's Jake Ward.
After 35 years, the doors of Nordstrom's department store in downtown San Francisco closed for good on Sunday. It's the latest in a series of retail closures in the city by the Bay as it struggles to regain its footing.
It's unfortunate to see what's been going on in the city, but hopefully somebody steps in to clean it up. And it's unfortunate that Nordstrom has to go.
When Nordstrom opened its doors in 1988, the surrounding neighborhood was considered, pretty rough. But the massive store was a success and helped spark a rebirth of the city's downtown. Fast forward to this May, when the company made the call to close the space. It said the area's changing dynamics were impacting foot traffic and our ability to operate successfully. The data is striking. Researchers tracking urban cell phone data confirm that as of June, downtown San Francisco was at the bottom of their recovery list, with just 32% of pre-pandemic foot traffic, trailing similarly sized cities like Austin and Seattle. Residents say they can feel the difference.
I do see less foot traffic.
I work down here on Market Street, and there's just half as many places to go to lunch now. Looking out of our window into other buildings, you see floor after floor after floor of empty desks, which is a little bit ominous.
The city, like many across the country, also grappling with crime, homelessness, and drugs, putting an additional strain on local businesses. But crisis can create opportunity. The mayor's office has floated the idea of replacing Nordstrom and its surrounding mall with a soccer stadium. And business leaders say empty spaces are being turned over to tenants that could never have afforded them in the old days.
To nonprofits, to artist groups, to entities which will come in and create interesting activities which will attract people.
Next month, the city begins giving temporary leases to organizations like this one, an art studio for people with disabilities, in the hopes that a new crop of tenants can do for San Francisco what Nordstrom once did.
Jake Ward is joining us now live. So, Jake, you know the Bay Area well. Open up your crystal ball, right? What are the long-term prospects? Because there are some of these immediate issues that you're talking about there in that report. And I'm not being facetious, I'm not asking you to predict, but what do experts and analysts say about the 10-year, 20-year prospects?
Well, the good news is that even though everyone, including myself, has, a sort of a offhand opinion about the future of San Francisco, Hallie, we don't have to rely on my gut. We can go with, for instance, the California Department of Finance, which did a big projection of the next 30 years between 2020 and 2060. They looked at what populations are likely to do in the Bay Area. And, here in Oakland, the very large Alameda County that I'm standing in is supposed to grow by about 20% in that period of time. Well, here's the thing, Hallie. In San Francisco, the number's supposed to go the opposite direction. According to that forecast, by 2060, the population is going to reach about 800 and just shy of 850,000 people. That's about 2.9% less people than there were in 2020. So, I mean, the thing to remember here is that there's a lot of video you see and a lot of talk you hear from businesses about, you know, the conditions on the ground, and it's the homelessness and it's the crime and it's the drug use, and all of those things are undoubtedly a factor. But if you are a big corporation looking at the long-term possibility of building a retail or maintaining a retail space in a city like San Francisco, you're looking at where the people are, right? That's where you're going to build. And so if you see the numbers going in the wrong direction, maybe you're going to think to yourself, perhaps this is my opportunity to downsize. We've seen people in the past, like Walgreens, say to their investors, you know, in fact, we may have overstated the amount of theft that we had been dealing with. So it's not just that. It is, of course, the changing demographics of these cities. There's fewer people in them. That's fewer money to, you know, less money to be spent in these stores. You've got e-commerce and the rest of it transforming it. So there's a lot going on here. But, you know, I have to say it is a quieter downtown San Francisco. It is a quieter place, I think, in cities across America. And now the question is, are we going to see the rebirth that we've always wanted to see in these cities?
Jake Ward, thank you very much for bringing us that perspective. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the show, students stuck in the middle of a political fight heading back to class in Florida today. Our Noah Pransky is there looking at what's different this year as the culture wars go to college. That's our original in just a minute. We are coming in with breaking news at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill for an update on that lockdown today. Let's listen.
Kevin Guskowitz, UNC Chief of Police Brian James, Chapel Hill Police Chief Salisa Leahy, Orange County Sheriff Charles Blackwood, Commander Freddie L. Johnson Jr. of the North Carolina Highway Patrol, Secretary Eddie Buffalo Jr. of the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, Special Agent in Charge Bob DeWitt of the FBI, Orange County District Attorney Jeff Neiman, and UNC Board of Trustees Chair David Bolick Jr. We know there'll be a lot of questions, and we'll take a few, but please understand this is an ongoing investigation and questions will be limited. We'll start with Chancellor Guskowitz.
Thank you all for being here today. This is truly a tragic day for our campus community. Chief James will give more details on the ongoing investigation, but this afternoon, shortly after 1 p.m., UNC police were notified of shots being fired in Cottle Laboratories on our campus. The suspect was eventually apprehended and is now in custody. I'm grieved to report that one of our faculty members was killed in this shooting. This loss is devastating, and the shooting damages the trust and safety that we so often take for granted in our campus community. We will work to rebuild that sense of trust and safety within our community, and our hearts are with the family of our fellow faculty member, those who are personally connected to the victim, and those traumatized by this senseless act of violence. In response, we have canceled classes for the rest of today and have canceled classes for tomorrow. We've sent an email with resources for our students, faculty, and staff. More information will be provided on additional services for our campus community. I'm grateful to our Emergency Operations Center, UNC Police, for managing this situation so effectively and keeping our community safe. I'm also grateful to our faculty, staff, and students for their effective cooperation during this event today. It's why we have an emergency action plan with an active shooter protocol that's practiced regularly, and because of that, this situation played out as best as we could have asked for today. I hope that you'll join me in praying for the victim's family, and every member of our Carolina community. And I encourage our community to come together during this difficult time. I'm now going to turn it over to Chief James to give you additional details on what happened today and his department's impressive response in keeping the rest of our campus safe. And I also want to thank the other law enforcement agencies, many of whom are here today, for the role that they played in keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Brian James. I'm the Chief of Police for the UNC Police Department. I thank you for being here this evening. And thank you, Chancellor Guskowitz. I also want to offer my sympathy to the victim in this incident and express my empathy to the entire UNC and Chapel Hill community. I'm very sorry to be standing before you today in these circumstances. It's a day we train for, but we hope it never comes. I know there will be a lot of questions as we try to answer as many as possible, but please understand this is an ongoing investigation, and there are many questions that we will not have the answers to at this time. I want to start by confirming, as the Chancellor did, we do have the suspect in custody from today's active assailant incident. At this time, we are not releasing the name of the suspect, as formal charges have not yet been filed. We are committed to conducting a thorough investigation, and we will provide as many updates throughout the process as we can. The FBI is providing assistance with multiple resources, including victim assistance and the evidence response team. The Caudle Lab, which is the location of the incident, will be closed until further notice as evidence is being processed. We want to ensure that we gather every piece of evidence to determine exactly what happened here today and why it happened. It is too early in this investigation to know a motive for the shooting. We will be working with all the law enforcement agencies you see represented here to uncover every fact available. That will take time, so we ask in the meantime that you continue to express your warm thoughts to the UNC Chapel Hill community. This investigation will continue for several weeks, but here's what we know right now. UNC police received a 911 call at 1:02 p.m. this afternoon reporting shots fired at Caudle Laboratory, located on South Road in near the center of campus. An emergency alert Carolina was issued, and the emergency siren sounded at 1:04 p.m., notifying campus of the emergency and issuing a lockdown. Upon arrival at Caudle Labs, police discovered one individual, a faculty member, had been shot. Unfortunately, as we have reported, this person is deceased. We will not be releasing further details on that person at this time, as we are working to contact all of this person's family and will be providing them with support and resources. This is the only fatality, and no other injuries were reported. Based on witness information at the scene, UNC police were able to identify a suspect, and after a search of the surrounding area, this suspect was taken into custody at 2:31 p.m. The lockdown of the campus remained while police verified the suspect's identity and conducted a comprehensive search for the weapon that was used in the shooting, which at this time has not been located. I want to thank all the law enforcement agencies who responded to assist today. Their assistance was invaluable, and we could not have responded so quickly or so thoroughly without their help. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to Kevin, and I guess we'll take any questions.
At this time, like I said earlier, and like the chief said, we'll have a few questions that we can take. Obviously, ongoing investigation, only so many things that can be discussed. But if you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll point to you, identify yourself, and then ask your question.
Stephen Schlick, UNC's Carolina Lead. We know that there's a car in the new Venable parking lot. Police did confirm to us that does have some sort of correlation to this event. Can you all speak to what kind of correlation that has to this?
Yes, a car was identified. We do think that it is related to the investigation. As we said, we are still in the process of collecting evidence and conducting interviews, so I'm really not prepared at this time to say exactly what the connection is, but we do have that car identified as a piece of possible evidence. Yes, sir. Yes, so once the suspect was identified and apprehended, we still had to ensure that this was the correct person. So there was an identification process. We did not want to put that information out at that time because we weren't sure. Also, we were receiving a number of calls around campus about possibly having other victims. There were a couple of other calls about possible gunshots. So we had to ensure that the entire campus was safe. So we had a number of officers that were on the ground doing an entire sweep of that area, also searching all the adjacent buildings. So we wanted to be sure that that the campus was in fact all clear before we issued that. So that's why there was the lapse in time. We just wanted to be sure that we had that person in custody and it was the correct person.
Okay, back row.
Yeah, can you tell us the suspect and the faculty member was killed? Were they known to each other? Did they ever work together? Perhaps a potential student?
We don't know that information at this time. That'll hopefully be uncovered through interviews of the suspect as well as any witnesses that may be available.
Chancellor Guskowitz, this is the second week of school. We've got new students on campus, returning students, and families all across the country. What's your message to students and their families?
This is really a time for the community to come together, and these tragic events sadly are happening across our nation. And again, it's why we prepare and talk about a sense of community. And so right now, that's what my thoughts and prayers are with obviously the victim and the victim's family and friends and colleagues and students who are part of that department. And so we hope our students will access the resources that we're making available and come together in a really important way for the campus right now.
Who's an observer? Can you tell us about how the suspect was apprehended and where exactly he was apprehended? Were there any tips that came in? Were there any reports?
So we did a comprehensive search of campus as well as surrounding areas. So at this point, I am not prepared to say how he was apprehended, but we are sure that it's him, and we were able to verify that.
Back row, right.
I spoke with several students. One of them, this is for Chancellor. She had said that the faculty had essentially told the students to make personal decisions on what to do next. She had said that she had hid in the closet. A lot of people were calling their parents saying goodbyes. I know you had mentioned that there is an active shooter kind of protocol put in place, but it seems that some of that maybe got lost in confusion today. And I know this is a scary kind of incident, but what is that protocol? And again, they were told that they needed to make a personal decision.
Again, I'm very pleased with how the protocol was carried out today. I had a chance to go over, along with the provost and others, to talk with the faculty who were there in the building at the time of the shooting and some of the students, and they're certainly traumatized, but I want to commend those who were in the building, ensuring that they were doing everything possible to ensure the safety of those students and faculty and staff that were in the building. And so, again, even the best laid plans, as you know, and protocols, sometimes they don't play out as you'd like to, but I'm very pleased with what we know at this point. We'll have an opportunity to review that, learn from the investigation and questions that are being asked, and certainly put improvements to that if need be.
You have been listening live now to the Chancellor of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and the police chief there sharing the difficult news that a faculty member has been killed in a shooting on campus today. The suspect now in custody after a roughly 90-minute search. There are still so many questions tonight. You can hear they're getting questions. They can't answer all of them, including whether or how the victim and attacker knew each other. We do know that no weapon has been found after what unfolded this afternoon, this hours-long lockdown, a shelter-in-place order on campus. We were just getting some video in of students appearing to jump out a window from one building when they first heard about what had happened, this lockdown on campus, trying to get out. It is chilling to see. I want to bring in Julia Ainsley now, who's joining us with the latest. It is, of course, difficult news. A deadly shooting now on a college campus yet again in this country.
Yeah, that's right. Just the second week they were back. They've just gone back to classes last week. And I think this really shows how difficult it is to alert students about what exactly investigators are finding in a timely manner, right? So there was a 1 p.m. shooting. They had a suspect at large. At first, there were reports saying the suspect is in custody. Then they changed that and said a suspect is at large. There were a lot of questions about whether or not anyone had been injured. And in the meantime, they kept the campus on lockdown lockdown, then did the all clear, but for 2 hours didn't say whether or not the suspect was in custody. So there's a lot of moving pieces. It happens when you have a community this widespread. I've spent a lot of time at Chapel Hill. I'm from Raleigh originally. I know this place really well. It's such a large campus, and it's so intertwined with the community that you have to put everyone on lockdown. There were even elementary schoolers in Chapel Hill on lockdown today. It had a huge impact. And even though one person did tragically lose their life, I think impact-wise, this is smaller than what it could have been or what we might have initially thought it could be. But it doesn't change the fear in the hearts of these students, these community members, and parents who worry about sending their kids back to school in a time like this.
The fear and the healing and the grief that this community will still have to do in the days and in the months to come. I think one of the key questions, and you heard sort of the police chief not be able to answer it fully, was this a targeted attack? In other words, was there a reason that this shooter walked into that specific lab on campus, the Cauto lab, and shot and killed this faculty member? We don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, with these things, we have to be so careful about what we do know and only stick to exactly those facts. But what we do know about this particular suspect is that he's a graduate student at UNC, looking over social media by a person of the same name. They talk about being interested in sciences. We know this was in a science building. So perhaps this was a student who was already in a class or a lab inside that building and could have known that faculty member. But we don't know for sure yet, and we're going to want to pay attention to this in the coming days to see if this was someone who had a targeted grievance toward this one individual.
Given your expertise in understanding how these investigations go, obviously at this point, interviews, right? Conducting interviews with the suspect, talking to people who knew this victim, talking to students in the area, that will take a while.
Yeah, and just trying to get to the underlying motive here and how something like this could be avoided in the future. It's probably too big of a task to put in metal detectors on college campuses like this. And this is a really friendly community where, yes, you need to badge in and have access. But in order to prevent this from going forward, a lot more investigations need to be done, and hopefully we'll get some answers. But right now it's early, but we have more answers now just after that press conference. Answers we had really been struggling to get all day from so many pieces of law enforcement because they don't want to say things are all clear too early.
Well, you have been covering it for hours, Julia. Thank you. Our teams are arriving on the ground there in North Carolina. We're going to have continuing coverage right here on NBC News Now on this developing story as it unfolds. Appreciate it. I want to turn now to the other big headline of the evening, which is the latest track on Tropical Storm Idalia. As we've just learned, it is getting closer to hurricane strength, and its track, it's shifted a little bit west, right? So that puts Tampa just outside the center of the storm. It's expected to make landfall very late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning as at least a Category 3 hurricane, but maybe close to a Category 4. That's how powerful this thing is. It's the first big hurricane of this year's Atlantic season, set to hit the U.S. We're talking about a storm surge that could be dangerous, tons of wind, a state of emergency already for nearly 50 counties, including most of the west coast of Florida. You've got some people being told they must evacuate. Others are being told get ready for it. Schools and colleges are already shutting down in dozens of districts starting tomorrow. And the big airport in the area, it is also closing. Tampa International says nothing's going to fly in or out starting around midnight Tuesday. The state's governor, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, you see him there to the left of that microphone. He is off the 2024 campaign trail on the ground in Florida as this hurricane, as the system gets set to roll in. This is his fourth briefing today that you're looking at live, warning people to be ready because the storm surge is what could be deadly. We've got meteorologist Bill Karen standing by with the forecast, but I want to get to Marissa Parra first, live for us in Tampa. Florida understands what it's like to get a hurricane, to be hit by a hurricane. I think everybody is watching the track here. People remember what happened for Hurricane Ian when it took a late turn south, slamming into Fort Myers rather unexpectedly. Talk us through what your sense is from people on the ground, how they're getting ready and what they're watching.
Yeah, so we actually have been in a good position to watch that firsthand, Hallie, because being here, this is one of many sandbag locations, not just on the west coast of Florida, but here in Tampa, the Tampa area, they have several. They've given out 10,000 sandbags today alone. They're expecting to do the same tomorrow. And just talking to people in line, whether it's here at the sandbag location, whether it's at the stores as people are getting their last minute preparations here, because this is how it goes with a hurricane, right? You find out that there's a tropical tropical storm on the way, you get those preps, and you have about a day to make that decision. Am I going to stay or am I going to go? Either way, you got to prepare yourself. You got to prepare your car, how you're getting out of here, or how you're going to choose to stay. So people here, what I'm sensing here, Hallie, is people who have not historically taken a tropical storm seriously are taking this one seriously. They're watching coverage, and even if they're choosing to stay, they're taking steps that they haven't taken in the past. They're getting these sandbags, they're preparing to stay inside of their homes, and they're coming up with a plan B and C in a way that they haven't before, because what we saw with Ian last year. So we had a chance to speak with a few people. We talked to some of them on camera. Take a listen for yourself.
We've been extremely lucky here in Tampa and have been bypassed by bad ones. And I'm just afraid that our luck is going to run out. We're not going to be prepared one time.
You got to be safe than sorry. You can't just assume that it's not going to hit. Last year they said it wasn't going to hit Orlando, and it did.
So in terms of what we're seeing with preparations, of course, the sandbags happening over my shoulder here. There's people getting those last-minute supplies, water, food. And then you also have people filling up on gas. We've seen this with natural disasters before. One thing that we saw, Hallie, was that, unfortunately, there was a contamination concern with one particular gas station. This is Citgo. You'll see a map in just a second of those concerns, the gas stations there, with those little red dots representing places that they're afraid that there might have been contamination when it comes to regular fuel mixing with diesel. That's a concern with a lot of cars because it could cause those cars to break down. Hallie, not what you want to see as people are trying to make those crucial last-second decisions. So I'll leave you with this. In terms of other things that we're seeing, a lot of closures. You mentioned school closures. Right now, I think the messaging is there are places that are being ordered to evacuate that are close to where that storm surge could be a massive concern. Mobile homes, low-lying areas, places closest to the coast. But the messaging from officials is take this seriously and leave if you can, because if this turns into something catastrophic and deadly, it might be too late to make those evacuations at the last second, Hallie.
Marissa Parr, thank you so much. Fast-moving developments to come in the next 40-plus hours. Appreciate it. Meteorologist Bill Cairns will be tracking every minute of it. And, Bill, key thing here that we've learned now in just the last hour, it is potentially going to hit as close to a Category 4, and that storm surge, even in places, outside of where it makes landfall, is going to be something to really keep an eye on.
A huge, powerful storm, and it's going to hit somewhere in the U.S. That's the bottom line. Now the only matter is, where does it hit and how much destruction does it do? How many towns or lives does it just totally change forever? So the storm itself has still been fighting to, it's slowly intensifying, but what we call wind shear has been interrupting it. In other words, there's some winds that have been knocking it down. So the thunderstorms bubble up and it tries to intensify, and then, the thunderstorms get knocked over. We think tonight into tomorrow, this Idalia is going to start winning that fight, and that's why the forecast is to rapidly intensify tomorrow. So the Hurricane Center has it by about 2 a.m. Wednesday, just after midnight, making it to a Category 3, 120-mile-per-hour wind. So if we get up to 135, that's when we go to a Cat 4. So and it has this entire path to do that before landfall. So here's Tallahassee, here's Gainesville, Cross City's in the middle here. This is Cedar Key, and then Tampa is here. So anything on the right of this is going to get the storm surge. Anything on the left will get the tide blowing out and the wind. So as of now, Tallahassee would be on, quote unquote, the weaker side of the storm. And then Tampa would be on the stronger side along with Gainesville. Now, this is assuming this path doesn't change. As we learned with Ian last year, these storms that approach the Florida peninsula from the south, a slight jog makes a huge difference in the landfall. So that's why everyone in Tampa is preparing as if it is going to head your way, because it is still possible. But, as if the hours go by, it gets more unlikely. It gets better for you. Now, the areas that are also going to get raked by a tropical storm is the entire southeast coastline. Along with it, that high tide Wednesday night with the full moon. So we do expect some coastal flooding issues all the way up the South Carolina coast. Here's all of our computer models from this morning, all taking it between Cedar Key and Tallahassee with the direct landfall. This area up here on Cross City, this is very swampy. It's the least populated location in all of Florida. So if we're going to have a Category 4 hit somewhere and you want a minimal amount of damage, this is the place to do it. But for the thousands of people that do live there, this is exactly what they don't want to hear.
That's right.
7 to 11-foot storm surge, 6 to 9 a little further south. And even in the Tampa Bay area to Pinellas County, Clearwater Beach to Sarasota, this is 4 to 7 feet of water. That's a big, especially if it hits at high tide. Hallie, that could be problematic. Then, of course, we're going to have all the rainfall issues along with the storm. And as far as the wind goes, as of now, as long as that track stays north, the really high gusts, like the 118, will avoid Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and Tampa. Right now, it would be minor power outages. But, you know, that shifts in 24 hours, about 30 miles east, and we're talking about a completely different scenario. Right now would be almost best-case scenario for a Category 4 hitting the U.S., but if it shifts 20 to 30 miles, it would be worst case almost, because Tampa and the storm problems, storm surge issues, that would be horrendous. So we're not done with this one, and that's why everyone in the Tampa area is just staring at these computer models and every forecast they can get.
It's a knife's edge, Bill. Thank you very much. I know you're tracking every second of it. We'll have coverage later on tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Let's bring it back here to Washington, where we are learning tonight the former president is set to go on trial on federal election interference charges the day before Super Tuesday in early March. This is the closest collision yet between Donald Trump's legal calendar and his political one. It's a move that could have a big domino effect in the race for the White House. And in just the last couple of minutes, the former president is already talking about it, sending fundraising emails off this trial date so close to this key political date. So March 4th, that's the trial. Pencil it in. We do mean pencil. But the judge in this federal case, you see the quote here, rejecting the Trump team's push to hold off until 2026, saying instead, she said, Mr. Trump, like any defendant, will have to make the case work, make the trial date work, regardless of his schedule. So remember what happens March 5th. What is Super Tuesday? Here's your refresher. Tons of people in more than a dozen key states go out and cast their ballots for a candidate for the nominee for their party, right? Tons of delegates up for grabs. Senior national politics reporter John Allen is joining us, but I want to start with Ryan Riley outside federal court in Washington. So, Ryan, let me have you handle the legal piece of it. We know that special counsel Jack Smith was in the front row of court today. He wanted a trial date in January. Mr. Trump's team wanted something in 2026. Instead, we land here, the week potentially of Super Tuesday. Does this date hold? Could it end up pushed?
It could end up pushed, but I think it's a good sort of range for when the ultimate trial will be. And I don't think there's any chance that this is going to get moved back, you know, barring any major developments until perhaps after the general election, because when she sets that date in March, even if you build in some flexibility there, if there are some appellate issues that work their way through the court or maybe even up to the Supreme Court, you can have a couple of months flexibility there. But basically, you know, what the special counsel's office was saying is you've got to put a date on the calendar, because that really sort of lights a fire under everyone, right? Now you're working towards, you know, getting through all of that discovery. You're working through getting some of these motions in check. And, you know, if you were to set out a trial 2.5 years down the road, that's not something that you would be doing. But now that you have a trial just 7 months out, you start getting the ball rolling on a lot of these processes, and you have a lot of these motions, you have a lot of these arguments, and you can settle them before that actual trial date comes about. I mean, the most interesting thing that I'm really when I'm doing the calendar out from there is typically when you're talking about, you know, a 4 to 6 week trial, and then 3 months after that, if he's convicted, would be a sentencing. So you really are in a situation where there could be a pending jail sentence or pending prison sentence hanging over the presumptive Republican candidate's head going into the general election in 2024.
Ryan, I'm going to ask you to stand by for a second. John, let me bring you in on the politics of it. The former president, as we mentioned, already tonight is trying to fundraise off of this, sending out an email and declaring that this trial date has been scheduled. He says, when I'm expected to be declared the presumptive GOP nominee for president. We don't know that to be true, right? We don't even know the delegate. We got math to do. You got races to run. We got to get through Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, et cetera. But talk through the political impact here, because there are so many questions depending on hypotheticals. What do other candidates do? Could this actually, if his trial does start the day before Super Tuesday, help solidify his hold on the Republican Party, since we have seen that happen as he's boosted his fundraising in indictments past? What's your sense as you're talking with sources on this today?
And Hallie, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I do have is a rearview mirror. And what we've seen, to your point, is every time Donald Trump has been indicted, every time that this has come up, he has been strengthened within the Republican primary. So if you were Donald Trump and looking at a political calendar, the day before Super Tuesday might just be the day you would pick. And also for the White House, If you were looking at, and the Biden campaign, if you were looking at a day that was good for you because they seem to think that Donald Trump is their best possible opponent, that would also be the day before Super Tuesday. I think what we're going to have to do is watch and see how things play out. But one thing to be aware of is the effect that this could have on any other candidate that won an early primary and was looking for momentum. Because, again, every time there's bad news on the legal front for Donald Trump, what you end up having is a huge rally around the flag among Republicans. So anybody trying to get momentum could see that cut off very quickly.
A gut check, can you, if you can, on the idea that everything is wrapped up by Super Tuesday? That's not necessarily the case. Just to pull back the curtain, I had a long conversation with our one of our political team members, Mark Murray, of course, talking about how does the delegate math shake out by Super Tuesday if, let's say, somebody were to win all the contests prior. We don't know that's going to happen, right? There's too many hypotheticals to tell, but we do know that it is a key date that everybody's got circled in red on their political calendars.
Yeah, absolutely, Hallie. And as far as the delegates go, there are many more delegates after those early primary states, so Super Tuesday and beyond, than are available in those early primary states. But what we know from the past is that when one candidate wins several races in a row early on, they can become impossible to defeat because the money dries up for other candidates. The interest in other candidates dries up. We don't know what will happen in this election.
I was going to say, but who knows this time, right? If that candidate is ready to sit trial on federal charges.
Right, that could absolutely change things. But again, so far, it's been helpful to Trump. And so far, Trump's riding around about 50% of the Republican primary. If anybody else was in that position, we would call them the prohibitive favorite.
Let me take this out of the realm, John Allen, and thank you, of the hypothetical and get back into the realm of kind of concrete things that have happened in the last 6 hours or so, Ryan Riley, because down in Atlanta, there is a new twist in a different case. That is the Georgia election interference case, the one in Fulton County. Mark Meadows was on the stand for hours today testifying. He's trying to get that case out of the state level into the federal level. No ruling yet, right? We don't expect that ruling tonight?
That's right. I think that's going to be taken under advisement for now. We don't know whether that will be argued out there in federal court, but it's not going to be a case where, say, federal prosecutors are going to be prosecuting. It's just basically a venue change, but it'll still be the state prosecutors bringing forward that case just in federal court. And that's all because Mark Meadows has this contention that when he was making all of these moves, he was not operating at the behest of the president, or rather on behalf of Donald Trump's political interest, but rather he was somehow operating in the interest of the American people. And that's just something that prosecutors say isn't really the case here. He was most interested in Donald Trump's bottom line rather than what was in the best interest of the country.
John Allen, Ryan Riley, thank you both so much. I want to get you down to Florida now, where we are getting some new details in, with police there releasing new surveillance footage of the attacker in Jacksonville who killed 3 people at a Dollar General store in a racist attack fueled by hate. You see one of those moments here when the shooter drives into a separate store, a Family Dollar. This is earlier that day. Police say he parked at the store, went out, actually bought things there, got back in the car, then goes elsewhere. This, we're about to show you, this is the moment that police got into the Dollar General to stop the shooter later in the day. Officials say they think it's at this moment that the shooter decided to turn his gun on himself. This comes as we are getting new details now from a security officer being called a hero at a historically black college in Jacksonville after he chased that attacker off campus. I want to show you now this officer who is thanking the students at Edward Waters University. He's basically saying, I'm not the hero, they are, because they helped me do my job. Watch.
It was actually the students. We preach, you see something, say something, and they did just that. I did see what appeared to be a tactical vest, a mask, along with a hat, covering his head at that time.
This attack killed 3 people. Analt LaGuerre Jr., who had recently graduated from high school, was working as a cashier at the Dollar General. His dad saying he hasn't even lived his life yet. Gerald Deshaun Gallion, whose brother described him as a good person who didn't deserve this. And then there was Angela Carr. She was Ubering somebody to the store when this happened. Her daughter says her mom was a dedicated, a great woman, and wasn't even supposed to be there. Gabe Gutierrez is live for us in Jacksonville tonight. So, Gabe, let me start with the newest information here, the surveillance video, these details that police are just releasing. Bring us up to speed.
Hi there, Hallie. Well, something that has struck me just in the last couple of days is just how transparent the local authorities have been when it comes to releasing information and releasing the surveillance video. But yes, just when we came on the air about an hour ago, that news conference was underway. The local sheriff here releasing that new surveillance video, which you just detailed. Part of it shows the local authorities arriving at the Dollar General behind me. And, you know, it was those moments right when the suspect apparently took his own life. Also, surveillance video from outside the historically black college where this suspect, where this gunman was parked his car and put on a tactical vest. And students, as you said, flagged down this campus security officer before the gunman sped away. Now, I spoke to that security officer, as you just heard him right there. He's saying he's not a hero. He's actually saying that the students are heroes for flagging what they described as a suspicious person in the first place. Now, I should say today, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced that the state would be setting aside $1 million to beef up security at this university. He also announced that another $100,000 will be set aside for the victim's family. Hallie.
Gabe, we also are hearing from President Biden on this attack, essentially saying we cannot let hate win after the apparent racism that fueled it here, clearly in this racist attack. Talk us through that piece of it.
Yes, and this, you know, came at quite a difficult time. This was the 60th anniversary, commemorating this weekend and then today, the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, and the president meeting with civil rights leaders today and saying that, you know, the country has to act against this hate-fueled violence. The Vice President, Kamala Harris, saying that America is experiencing an epidemic of hate. So the president also speaking with Governor DeSantis this morning, pledging any federal support following these horrific acts. But right now, you know, the community here is devastated. Some of the family members have gotten a new attorney, Ben Crump, of course, heavily involved in civil rights cases of the last several years. And there's another vigil scheduled for later on tonight. I spoke with one of the daughters of one of the victims here. The daughter's name is Ashley Carr, and she told me how her mother was an Uber driver and leaves behind 16 grandchildren. Take a listen.
It's a traumatic, unreal, incredible experience that you never are ever prepared for that amount of emotion, of that, you know, it's unfathomable.
Investigators here in Jacksonville saying, though, that the gunman purchased the two firearms he used legally. Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez live for us there in Jacksonville. Gabe, thank you very much. Let's take you over to Maui now, where the big electric company there is now saying it cannot be blamed for that deadly wildfire in Lahaina because its power lines were already turned off. It's part of their response to a lawsuit from the county, one of several suits that have been filed since those fires incinerated this historic town, killing at least 115 people. Now, the utility acknowledges that their lines caused a fire in the morning, but that one was put out with no injuries, no damage. They say their lines got power down before the second fire in the afternoon that caused so much destruction. And Hawaiian Electric says they have the records to prove it. I want to get to Steve Patterson now, who is live for us in Maui. Talk through the significance of this, because at this point, Steve, you have people seeking accountability. I think you have people on the ground who want to know whose fault this horrific firestorm was.
They do, and it's getting even deeper because these agencies keep pointing their fingers at each other. And it's just in the last 15 minutes, there's a new development on this. So just to catch everybody up, right? Yeah. The electric company is being sued by the county for causing the fire. The electric company earlier today responded saying, we de-energized the lines. There was a first fire. Yes, that fire was put out. There was a second fire. That wasn't us because we de-energized our lines hours before that fire. Now the county has responded to the electric company responding to the lawsuit. This is just in the last 10 minutes or so. We might be able to put that on screen for you. This is the county. It reads, to the extent HECO, which is the electric company, an acronym for that, has information of a second ignition source, HECO should offer the evidence now. The ultimate responsibility rests with HECO to de-energize, ensure its equipment and systems are properly maintained, and ensure down power lines are not energized. So again, Hawaiian Electric says they did de-energize, and they say there's evidence of that. We haven't seen the evidence. Apparently, Maui County hasn't seen the evidence. So everybody wants to see what exactly this evidence is. And when you say de-energize, get specific. Are you talking about the entire system well ahead of the wind event, that there was some sort of fail-safe that was triggered during, that maybe some of the lines were de-energized? There's a lot of specifics that haven't been addressed yet. That is what the county is responding, asking for this. I think it is unbelievable that we're seeing this level of interaction between these two agencies that residents both blame for being at fault for causing this fire. Residents blame the county for not sounding the sirens, for mismanagement, for blocking access into the scene. Residents blame the power company for possibly sparking the fire, that there were red flag warnings on the day of the fire. You have dry brush, you have high winds. Why not de-energize? The power company saying they did. But again, we need to see the evidence. And I think that's the calls we're having right now. We're in touch. We're trying to get in touch with both of these agencies as all of this is breaking as we speak. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, live for us there on Maui. Steve, thank you so much. Lots of developing news as we are on the air here. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, a record-breaking fine against one big airline tonight. But the federal government says American did. Coming up in the 5 things. Plus, why officials in Japan say Chinese citizens are throwing rocks at schools. Students at the University of South Carolina back in class today after one of their fellow students was shot and killed trying to get into the wrong house. Police say somebody shot Nick D'Onofrio, who's 20 years old, on the porch of the house he was trying to get into. It wasn't his. He apparently lived on that same street a couple of miles from campus. He had just moved in a few days ago. This is a not unfamiliar situation, at least not this year. People being shot at or in some instances killed for what seems to be a simple mistake. You'll remember earlier this year, a white man in his 80s shot 16-year-old Ralph Yarl when Yarl rang the wrong doorbell while trying to pick up his younger brother. Yarl says he is still, obviously, feeling the effects of being shot in the head. There's also 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis, who died when somebody shot at the car she and her friends were in when they accidentally pulled into the wrong driveway. Kristen Dahlgren is joining us now. What else do we know about the circumstances around what happened, and how does the stand your ground law in South Carolina have an impact in where this case goes next?
Right, and that's going to be the big question moving forward on whether or not there were charges. We'll get to that in a second, but we've got this 20-year-old sophomore. As you said, it appears like a mistake that really turned deadly. He was trying to get into the home. According to the police, they say at 2 a.m., they got a call. At first, it came in as a burglary. It quickly changed to shots fired. By the time they got there, Nick D'Onofrio was dead. His family releasing a statement, really a heartbreaking statement, saying, "We were very lucky to be his parents. We love him very much. He was the son that every parent would wish for." Now, you asked about, and South Carolina actually has a castle doctrine, so it's a little bit nuanced with, stand your ground type laws, which include this castle doctrine. In South Carolina, you don't have to retreat before using deadly force if you are in your home. And it kind of limits the ability in some cases to investigate what happened when somebody says they did this in self-defense. It's important to note that in those other 2 cases you talked about, there were charges filed in spite of those states having either stand your ground or castle doctrine. In South Carolina, the investigation continues. They still haven't said whether or not we'll see charges in this. It's going to come down to whether the homeowner could have reasonably believed that they were in danger, Hallie.
Kristen Dahlgren, thank you very much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a judge today saying the trial of the Highland Park shooter's father can move forward, essentially overriding the attorney's arguments that the dad cannot be held responsible for his son killing 7 people and hurting a dozen others at a July 4th parade last year. Robert Cremo Jr. sponsored his son's gun application, which let his son get the weapon used in the shooting. The father's trial is set to start in just a couple months in November. Number 2, 3 Marines were killed, 20 of them hurt after an Osprey crashed during a training exercise in Australia. 8 of those Marines are still in the hospital. Investigators are trying to figure out what happened here. Number 3, a rep for Elton John says the singer is now back home and doing okay after he ended up in the hospital because he fell at his home in France. His rep says he went to get medical help as a precautionary measure. Remember, Elton John has had some health issues over the years. In 2021, he needed hip surgery after a fall and had to postpone some tour dates. Number 4, the federal government is fining American Airlines something like $4 million for long ground delays. It says American didn't let people get off dozens of planes that were delayed for hours and hours. The DOT says it's the biggest fine it's ever given out for this kind of thing. American says it tries to avoid long delays and has paid passengers who ended up on those planes. Number 5, the first round of the U.S. Open kicking off today with a big new change. Video replay is now going to be allowed to figure out whether a ball bounces twice. People toss around the phrase game changer all the time. This could actually literally change a game. We'll see if it does this tournament. It's now the first Grand Slam to actually have this replay in effect. We'll see. When we come back, some new details tonight are on Spain's soccer chief after that kiss at the Women's World Cup. The top officials who want his resignation coming up. Plus, a huge cleanup operation happening right now in Italy. Why officials say the threat is not over yet. That's in the Global. In just the last couple of hours, we've seen members of Spain's soccer federation calling for the resignation of its own president after Luis Rubiales was seen kissing the women's team's star player just moments after they won the World Cup. These other, essentially, federation team heads saying that this was an unacceptable example of behavior that has seriously damaged the image of Spanish football. Like, if you're wondering, well, wait a second, put it into context. This is like if every NFL team got together and called on the league commissioner to resign. That's the equivalent here. It's happening as prosecutors in Spain are launching a new investigation tonight into whether Rubiales broke the law when he kissed Jennifer Hermoso. With people in Spain, some of them furious. On the street, they're demonstrating to support Hermoso, calling for both Rubiales' resignation and an end to so-called Spanish machismo and sexism. FIFA has suspended Rubiales for 90 days, and Hermoso was pretty clear about her feelings on this whole kiss situation, talking to Twitter, putting a post on X, calling it a sexist, out-of-place act without any consent on my part. Because of that, we are not going to show you the video of that kiss. Spanish officials say Hermoso has 15 days to report herself as a possible victim in the investigation. Rubiales is refusing to resign. He's not doing it. And his mom, she's backing her son. She's holed up inside this Spanish church on an indefinite hunger strike, saying her son's been treated unfairly. NBC's Molly Hunter is following this one for us. And Molly, we started covering the story right when it happened, right? I think it was like the night that this occurred, the morning after. It has spun off in a whole lot of different directions and is really creating this moment of reckoning, not just in Spain, but around the world.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. This is a moment of reckoning, by the way, that the Spanish players are saying, we told you this was coming. This is structural. This has been happening, which I think is really interesting, Hallie, which I hope we'll talk about in these next couple of minutes, is that do women have to be winning for them to be listened to? But a little bit more on the investigation I will give you. As you just mentioned, a massive federal investigation has been launched today. They are looking specifically what they believe are the facts may constitute an offense of sexual harassment. It's also being called sexual aggression. That is the crime they are talking about. As you mentioned, Jennifer Hermoso, the national player, now has 15 days to formalize that complaint. She has been very, very clear. But the onus is now on her legal team to really put that forward. It's very clear, though, how FIFA feels. They responded, not as quickly as some wanted, Hallie, suspending him for 90 days. Also, very interestingly, and this is very rare, banning him from contacting Jennifer Hermoso or anyone in her environment or anyone that she is close to, her family or her friends, which is quite rare. This Deputy Prime Minister, Hallie, I do just want to play a little bit of sound from her and then talk to you on the back end, because she speaks to the magnitude of this moment.
No matter how hard they try to use force against the women of this country, I think they will not succeed. There has to be a profound renewal of the sporting structure in our country. In other words, it is clear that what we are experiencing is not normal.
and yet it's not normal. It hasn't been normal. They've been saying this for the last year or so. And finally, though, the World Cup champs on a world stage. It is the moment, the crowning moment they should be celebrating. And this is on video, Hallie. I really respect the show for not showing that video. And that's what we're talking about a week later. We're not talking about that amazing first half goal that won them the World Cup. We are still talking about this. This is what's making national headlines. Now, tonight, that FA, the Spanish Federation, has been meeting all day. The regional presidents, as you led your show with just now, as you led your intro, are suggesting that he resign. Right now, it only looks like that's going one direction.
Pull on that thread more, Molly, right? Because you traveled with a bunch of these teams throughout the tournament. You know how much this was such a dream come true for these Spanish women. The focus has shifted, and there has been this broader cultural moment that comes from this.
Yeah, exactly. This was a first-time winner. We knew, Hallie, and we talked about this during the tournament, that we would either get the England Lionesses or the Spanish team. Neither have ever won. This is a huge moment for this team, and you watch that final. They are out there. They are excited. They are celebrating. They are so happy, and then this happens, and this handicaps it. This overshadows it. This is what we are still talking about, and you've seen over the weekend from NWSL players, from all of these U.S. women pro players, they've been wearing these wristbands. They've been holding up these signs saying, we are with you. But I think this is the broader conversation. And we saw it with the U.S. women and their fight for equal pay. We are seeing these athletes lead these social and progressive changes, but only when they're good, Hallie, but only when they're on top.
Molly Hunter, glad you're here, being able to cover this story for us. Again, taking so many new twists and turns. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our foreign desk has done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Italy, take a look at this video. Some super intense flash flooding in the north today. Landslides taking over some of the streets overlooking Lake Como. Officials say the cleanup is starting in some of the cities affected. No word on if anybody was hurt, and the flood risk, even tonight, is still there in some spots. Let's take it to France now, where the country is banning long robes worn by some Muslim women. They're not going to be allowed in classrooms starting this new school year. Officials say they go against secularism in schools. Critics say this is more like a fashion statement. It's not overtly religious. French public schools already do not allow large crosses, Jewish kippahs, or Islamic headscarves to be worn. Out of Japan, the government wants China to stop its citizens from harassing Japanese diplomatic schools and other spots after Japan released radioactive water into the ocean. There have apparently been incidents of people throwing stones at schools or doing prank calls. Japan says it's releasing the wastewater to clean up some of the impact of the 2011 earthquake and tsunami, which led to reactor meltdowns there. They say they need to do this to get rid of the water that's accumulated at the plant. This release is expected to go on for decades. We want to bring you back now to that breaking news. The on-campus shooting at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that we learned in just the last hour left one faculty member dead and the suspect in custody. We understand now the FBI is apparently helping local law enforcement in this investigation. Students locked down for hours as this was unfolding. We have this new video we showed you minutes ago into us of some students apparently jumping out of a window when they first heard about an active shooter on campus. NBC's Hallie has just arrived on scene in Chapel Hill. She is joining us now. Tell us what you know, what you're hearing, and what you're seeing, Al.
Yeah, Hallie, just a really harrowing way to go back to school. This shooting coming just a week after classes started and kids got back on campus. We're learning, of course, now that there is one victim, a professor here at UNC Chapel Hill. The suspect still in custody at this point. The names of those two people, both suspect and victim, not released to the public. But even just in the last half hour since getting on campus here, Hallie, you can see, of course, the ticker tape still up behind us. We saw some police cars and law enforcement vehicles still with sirens on. Nevertheless, there's still that juxtaposition between those lights and sirens and the students who are walking around in sandals and flip-flops just trying to go back and forth between dorms and residence halls and other places here on campus. An attempt to get back to normal after something like this, but of course, impossibly hard to do so. We heard from some of those students who said it was terrifying to have to shelter in place, not knowing what was happening. And of course, you saw that video that we watched surface on social media of students climbing out of windows, their backpacks dangling off of them. It's a reminder of what happens when people go back to school. It is all too habitual, all too familiar, and yet here we are again.
Hallie Vitale live for us there in North Carolina. Hallie, thank you for bringing us up to speed. I know you'll have more reporting to do in the hours to come. Still to come here on this show, the latest on the culture wars in Florida, coming to a college campus. We'll take you there live in just a sec. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And today it is the first day of class for students at New College in Florida, where the governor, Ron DeSantis, and his appointees have reshaped a school that had a once liberal reputation by cutting gender studies and diversity programs, just to name a few of some of those big changes. A bunch of students and teachers left the school, but a bunch more have now enrolled, moving in for the first day. And our Noah Pransky is there. Hey, Noah.
Hey, Hallie, this campus on Sarasota, Florida, is just as beautiful as it was a year ago. But in talking to returning students and the new incoming president, it's very clear that it feels different to many of them. What do you say to students who think that they've been caught up in the middle of a political fight?
What you're caught up in is America fighting for the proper education of our students.
It was just 8 months ago, Richard Corcoran, a political ally of Governor Ron DeSantis, was named interim president of New College of Florida.
Where the dock is, there's plans for a master's in marine mammal biology.
It's the smallest university in the state system, with a long-time reputation as also its most liberal. In that short time, he overhauled the school's curriculum, replaced more than a third of its faculty, and ushered in the largest ever new class of students, one that looks dramatically different from the previous classes here.
You want a more conservative campus?
We need to be, yes. I don't think you can be a great liberal arts school and claim to be one if you're not in the center.
The question, what is the center? DeSantis' handpicked board and president eliminated the popular gender studies program here and all diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
That has no place in our public institutions.
Their top point of pride, rolling back what they've called the school's far-left culture.
You have requested $2 million state dollars for a cancel culture center.
We requested $2 million for a cancel culture center.
Why?
Because it needs to happen. We need a nationwide beacon that says this is how you do it. We're going to have great debates out here on the yard. Liberals, conservatives, come. Let the students be exposed to every aspect.
The Corcoran-DeSantis makeover also includes new state money to fix decrepit buildings, to reverse the school's sagging enrollment numbers, and to subsidize the school's first ever athletic program. For the first time in years, it looks like enrollment could tick back up.
Conservatives make up a large population of the country, and they want to go to school too, and they want to go without having to have different ideas forced down upon them, which happens a lot.
But those changes come at a cost for many existing New College students. About 1 in 4 transferred out this summer, and those that didn't, especially LGBTQ+ students, are apprehensive.
It feels like I'm a pawn.
Kat Turner describes the vibe as unwelcome.
It feels like New College has become a political playground to try out what these people want the country to be. I'm upset. This is my education.
She says her preferred housing was taken away late this summer. And with so many courses canceled due to faculty resignations, some upperclassmen aren't even sure they'll be able to finish their majors.
It feels like they're attacking us and they're trying to actually exclude the returning students.
Noah Tyler's concerned about what shoe might fall next, but he's also optimistic about both the influx of state money and of new students.
That's why I came back. I think there's still the foundation that we need to get stuff done. And I hope that we can continue to do so.
That hope may hinge on whether the New College experiment produces the free speech Mecca promised, or merely an atmosphere that deepens our ideological divides.
It is a fascinating, Noah, microcosm of this idea of the divisions writ large in this country, right? The more conservative versus the more liberal. You mentioned a record number of new students. Tell me more about that. What's that about? And what's the sort of impact here on day one, if we can tell?
So some of the students, no doubt, attracted to the DeSantis vision. But the biggest factor in getting this record class in the first year of the DeSantis experiment actually was recruiting student athletes for the first time in the school's history. 150 new student athletes for a very small program, brand new. Half of the incoming class are now student athletes. And on one hand, it's very costly. It has, in a way, lowered some of the academic thresholds to get in. But on the other hand, some of the existing students are excited about seeing sports on campus, and that the administration says that this school has struggled in the past with racial diversity. Bringing in these new student athletes is actually helping them. Hallie?
Noah Pransky live for us down there in Florida. Noah, thanks for being out there for us tonight. Appreciate it. That does it for us this hour, this very busy hour, and the one before it. We've got a lot more coverage here on News Now, a top story picking up our coverage right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.